Hey, everybody, welcome to the RunDot podcast. We are so excited to start a 2-week series where our coaches talk to us about all 6 training zones. What is actually happening in our bodies when they are in zones 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. This week and next week, we'll find out. For this one, I have 2 coaches here to talk to us specifically about training zones 1, 2, and 3. We're joined by run coach Ryan Tibball. Ryan has a BS in biomedical sciences from Texas A&M University, say that 10 times, and respiratory care from UT Health Center at San Antonio. Also with us is professional triathlete and coach Elizabeth James. She has been coaching runners and triathletes since 2014. And I'm Carrie Tullefson, Olympian, broadcaster, and your guide to the world of RunDot. We treat the show like any good workout. We'll start with a warm-up question, settle into our main set conversation, and then wind things down by having our coaches answer an audience question on the cool down. Lots of good stuff today, so let's get after it.
This is the RunDot podcast, the running show that brings you world-class coaching with every conversation. Let's get started with today's warm-up.
All right, you guys, if anyone knew what happens on a podcast before Andrew Harley gets to the editing, they would have a secret on us, right? But we are going to not tell all of our secrets, and we are going to start with our warm-up question. So thanks for coming on the show. And what we want to hear from you is, what music artist would you say has the most songs on your workout playlist? Elizabeth, let's start with you.
Okay. I love music, and I love a wide variety of music. So this frequently changes. At the time we're recording, NF, so letters NF, is actually the most frequent artist on my playlist right now. Think a combination of like gospel and rap, which is a strange combination, but it's fantastic, and it has powered me through a number of run intervals recently. So yeah, not something that's frequently on there, but currently the favorite.
I need to hear some of this stuff. And maybe I'm very notorious to not know who's singing the songs. And then I'll pick up on it. So, but I'm going to reach out to you.
And then you're like, oh, wait, I do know that one.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly. Or, oh, that's what they're actually saying?
Yep.
Oh, fun. Okay, Ryan, how about you?
Well, you know what? It depends on my mood, but I mean, mood and workout type, right? I mean, at least for me.
Yeah.
Then again, I could probably work out to this one particular artist, slow or fast, it doesn't matter. Metallica.
Oh.
And I'm a rock and roll guy from the 80s, and I love Metallica, and I think Metallica can go either way, but I would prefer it more for the hard stuff. And then, honestly, for the easy stuff, I go to my yacht rock or some 80s playlist pop. It is something, just kind of keeps the mood more than anything else. There is no rhyme and reason to my cadence or anything from the music, because my cadence is pretty staple for me. So, but yeah, I think, I know that wasn't the one answer, but I gave 3.
That's okay. That's what podcasts are for, to go off on all kinds of tangents. For me, I would have to say Lenny Kravitz. I love American Woman. They played that song during one of my best races indoors once, and I couldn't, I can't get it out of my head when I think about doing workouts or out on a workout. If I play it, it's just I don't know, there's something about it. You think about the Olympics, or you think about what you're trying to do in that workout. And so I like Lenny Kravitz, but I also love Eminem. Who doesn't love listening to him get everybody fired up? And I listen to that with the kids in the car, and we're all just we're about, ready to go and have our highest points in a game or whatever. So I'm kind of with you, Ryan. I kind of go way back. I don't have a lot of current hits. I like them, but when I make a playlist, it's usually old stuff.
Let's go.
All right, let's get into the main set, everybody. I'm excited about this podcast. This is great because 1, 2, and 3, zones 1, 2, and 3 are always kind of am I in 1? Am I in 2? Am I in 3? So here we go. So to set the stage off for this conversation, why is it important to find the zones that we're training in? I think we're just going to go with that, straight up with that question. Who wants to take it first?
I feel like both
Ladies
of us are
first.
you go.
Yeah.
My hands
Ladies
up.
first. Go for it.
Nice.
Yes. So I think as we start at the beginning here, just this foundational knowledge about the fact that there are different zones and they have different purposes is really important. And the main reason for having all of these different zones is to really optimize the training benefits. So staying in a particular heart rate zone or an effort zone, like a pace zone, what that does is it targets different fitness adaptations. And staying in the right zone really just makes sure that you're working on the specific goals for that session. So whether it's, building endurance in some of these aerobic zones or developing speed and power in, some of those upper zones that we won't get to today, but are going to be covered in the next part of this series, it has a different purpose. And so making sure that we understand what those zones are and the intent of the workout really helps maximize an athlete's performance. And ultimately, this is making sure that we can enjoy the sport for as long as we want to. So training the right way allows us to enjoy the sport, continue to progress, stay injury-free. I mean, we can just keep going on and on for the list of benefits about staying in our particular zones.
Yeah. But Ryan, I think what's interesting is you guys don't always know your athletes, and probably a lot of times, the majority of the time, you don't know them. You've never met them. You're, maybe just online or whatever. So how do you start a new athlete in their right zones? How does that work?
Yeah, obviously having that starting that conversation off with, understanding where they're coming from, right? Where have they, what is their history, especially their most recent history? I mean, we can all talk about, oh yeah, 20 years ago, I used to run, 2-3 marathons a year, but what have you done lately, right? And that's important to find out where the athlete is at right now. First thing I do with my athletes is exactly that. Find out where they're at. Specifically ask, what have they been doing in their most recent training, and also looking at their data. So I generally connect up with them on their Garmin's and get them into the RunDot system, and I can get all their metrics there as well. And I even go into their social media on their Strava, and I learn a lot more about them too. But getting their assessments done. Yeah, I think, right then and there, it sets the stage, it sets the foundation to move forward and train appropriately, like aptly put by EJ there. I mean, the teacher came right out in her, and I loved hearing it. I knew she would have that answer. And that she explained that, there's a purpose and a rhyme and reason for every single zone we do. And, also, let's talk about, asking the athlete, what equipment do you have? What are you using right now? What equipment do you need? And that's where we need to start. And so we can start measuring things appropriately, whether it's your Garmin watch, Apple Watch, Sunto, what are all of those different various watches? But then let's talk about our heart rate straps and measuring, utilizing the proper equipment. I believe in utilizing a chest strap over just relying on the optics of a Garmin watch or any other watch that has optics, because it's a different, it lends to different data, and usually that data is inappropriate from those optics. But going into that, I really want, to impress upon those assessments, just getting the assessments done. For beginners, what I love about RunDot is it has a 12-minute assessment. It is perfect for new athletes coming into RunDot, and they just run run as hard as they can for 12 minutes, strategically run as hard as they can for 12 minutes, or they can do a 5K for your more experienced, or even so super experienced athletes can do up to a 10K. But it's important that we set that foundation and get that done right, and then we can get at their zones appropriate, their pacing zones, their heart rate zones, and if they run by power, they can get those set up too, which is really nice. So I think, given all of that, say that conversation can be long at the start, and that's the fun part about coaching. That's what I love about it. I just get to learn about my athlete from the get-go.
Yeah. What if you have an athlete that's kind of more of a walk run, or really very new to RunDot, very new to the world of endurance? How do you guys do those assessments then?
I'll answer that, Elizabeth, either way. I'll take that, that 12-minute assessment, and that's what we ask. Say, hey, Jim, Jane, whoever it is, go out and do your best at 12 minutes.
Okay.
Give us your best effort, but make sure you're measuring the distance and your heart rate throughout. And And that has proven to be a very, very effective way of getting their zones set up. And, once they progress through like several weeks of training and going forward, maybe several weeks to a couple of months, they'll find themselves running more consistently. And then it's time to try to redo those assessments and update them, because chances are they are going to see some really significant improvements beyond then.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to start with you, Elizabeth, on this. And sounds like your coach, EJ.
Yes,
That,
yeah. I
that's how
mean,
most
Elizabeth,
people know
but
you.
a lot of my athletes do know me as Coach
Yeah.
EJ.
Ryan, do you have a nickname?
Uh, a lot of people call me Tibball. It's just like Coach Tibball. I don't know. That came from way back when I was even in school myself.
Yeah.
Even the coaches called me Tibball.
Oh,
Hey,
I
Tibball.
love it.
I don't know why.
I love it.
It just stuck. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Well, EJ, we want to talk about, those zones 1, 2, and 3. So let's start first with zone 1. Let's talk about it. Just give us kind of the 101 of zone 1.
Yes, yeah. So zone 1 is often known as the recovery zone. But one of the things that I kind of want to go back and touch on a little bit that Ryan mentioned was just, for people that are starting out. And I think one of the things that I love most about RunDot and the programming is that it does not matter where you are on your fitness journey. The programming is going to meet you where it's appropriate.
Nice.
And so, when we're talking about zone 1, for a number of the athletes that I'm coaching right now, zone 1 is, what they're going to hit in their warm up, maybe what they're going to hit in between a couple hard intervals, and what they're going to hit in their cool down. But there is also a place where zone 1 might be most appropriate for an athlete that's just getting started. That, their workout that day might be, hey, we're going to run and walk and we're going to do this in 30-second intervals. And most of the time they might be in zone 1.
Okay.
And that's very appropriate for them. And that's fantastic. It may also be that somebody is coming back from an injury. And so zone 2 might not be appropriate yet. We might be just testing the waters to see, are we able to move effectively? And we want to establish good movement before we start putting any, specific parameters around an effort with that. And so this is where I don't feel like zone 1 gets enough credit, because if we're talking about the super scientific things that are happening within the training zones, zone 2, and we're going to talk about this, is like where the magic happens. And we can get super scientific and be like, oh yeah, this is, where we're making all of these aerobic gains and we're looking at, what happens with the heart, and man, the mitochondria are just getting stronger. But we don't look at like where zone 1 might be most appropriate. And so I love that we're starting this podcast with zone 1 and we didn't just jump into like zone 2 training right away, because there is a time, there is a place that's appropriate for zone 1. And it's not just as the warm up. It's not just people coming back from injury. There's a time and a place for it that is appropriate for a number of athletes.
Yeah.
And I'm again just excited that we get to start with this. As Ryan said, I think sometimes the educator comes out in me. I'm like, yes, yeah, let's dive in and talk about all of this. But that's cool too, because some athletes want to know.
Yeah.
And they want to know, what is the why behind all of this? And others are like, hey, just tell me what to do today. And if you tell me I'm going to run walk, great. I will trust that you have the scientific background to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Others that will want to know why. So
Yeah.
we get to touch on both here.
Well, and I too think that it's nice to know why you're supposed to be in zone 1, because so oftentimes we kind of skip over it because it does feel easy, or it is super conversational pace. And some people are like, I'm not doing anything. I'm not, burning enough, or I'm not getting fit off of this. So I think it's important for us to kind of really zone in here on zone 1. And Ryan, why don't you tell us what is actually happening inside of us when we are staying in that zone 1 when we're supposed to?
Yeah, hopefully not a whole lot. But it should, as EJ said, it's there to promote sometimes recovery, coming back from illness. And so, even even so, when some of the cruise intervals, for example, in between those things are zone one, it's meant to be a full recovery. In order, one, it helps you set you up for success in that particular workout that has higher zones in it. So take advantage of that zone one to recharge the battery is like what I like to say. And so it also, again, just promotes blood flow anyways. If like zone one was all you're going to do, just get that blood flowing to help, maybe you just came off of running a marathon, half marathon, 10K, 5K. Just get out the door. I'd almost to a point where I've said sometimes to athletes, which I hate saying this, but take off the watch and just go out the door and enjoy yourself in the sunshine. That's pretty much going to be zone one, I hope. But, again, it's just, there to just keep the circulation of blood going. And it really does help push. And it should be relaxing.
Yeah.
It should be like, you should notice everything. The birds, the trees, everything, instead of being zoned out in something else, right? So you should be enjoying yourself. Absolutely. Metallica is not the choice of music typically in that one. Just, I want to put that out there. So, but yes, but it does, but if it relaxes you, like me, then maybe Metallica is good for you.
Well, I know this is a loaded question because everything is so different between, one day to the next, but how often are you, like, I think every single time we start a run or workout, we hit zone one at some point, whether that's right when we're starting or as we're coming out of it or whatever. But how much do you typically prescribe for the athlete to be in zone one? No matter what, I guess, day it is. If it is just a easy recovery day, you might be there longer, I guess. But if you are starting a hard workout, like, how do you guys figure that out? How does RunDot figure that out?
One of the things that's interesting is that zone one isn't often prescribed. I would say that zone one is often kind of either a ramp up or a ramp down from the workout, or it is a specific adjustment that has been made by the coach to really elicit that recovery response. And so most of even the recovery runs, the easy runs that an athlete is going to see on RunDot are going to be zone two. Now, I mean, there will be a range there. And so depending on how they're feeling during the day, maybe it's the lower end of zone two if they're a little bit more fatigued. But I would say that, zone one is kind of that ramp up, that ramp down, recovery between intervals, or you're coming back from something. As Ryan mentioned, maybe it was a hard race, maybe it was an illness, maybe it was an injury. Because as we mentioned, there's not a lot of fitness adaptations that happen in zone one. So we really do want to kind of try to get to zone two for those fitness adaptations when it's appropriate. Now, when it's not appropriate, coming back down to zone one might be our best option. But that's why you're really not going to see a lot of zone one within the training plan.
So somebody that's new, and I'm asking a lot of questions that more thinking of a newbie, right? But when they are actually, very much on their way, but they're still a newbie, do you kind of think of zone one as like those initial steps before you really get into your run? Like I keep thinking, like it keeps coming back to me, like people are so fatigued after a long day of work. And zone one, for me as an athlete, if you said, I just want you to get out there, go to zone one for a little bit, just shake off the office, right? Or shake off dealing with kids or whatever. That to me is where zone one is, because then once you really get into it, it feels like, okay, I've got my shoes on. I'm actually a block in. Now I'll get into zone two, Like, how do you guys explain? Is that kind of what you're thinking too? Almost like walking down the driveway to get your first steps.
Yeah.
That's kind of how zone one can be thought of.
Yeah, I could almost describe that as a mental breaker.
Yeah.
Like get over that mental fatigue you might have been experiencing in the day just by lacing up the shoes, getting out the door, and just kind of like just breathe and get the blood flowing. And then, okay, coach said go ahead and do some zone 2 versus zone 4 today. I'll get to it. But hey, great, or at the very end of your run, you're finished with your run. Finish it off in zone 1 at that point, and even walk it out in zone 1. Obviously, that can be a good place, and it just can serve multiple purposes: mental treatment, so to speak, or a little bit of that physical too.
I don't think we spend enough time there, to be honest. And I am like the first person at 5:45. I meet my group and I am like probably zone 3, maybe even zone 4. I am like out the door, just get it done. I have, 30 minutes to do it. And so I think there's a lot of people like me at this stage in life where you're busy, you got kids, like the quicker you can get home, the better, but you still want to get your workout in. Like no matter if it's 20 minutes or not, you're still going to kind of hammer that 20 minutes and do your deal. So I do think it's important for us all. Maybe it isn't even in that workout, but like to have zone 1, go for a walk with your dog, like let the blood flow, like you guys just saying, like there's so many different reasons why we should be in zone 1. And yes, we will hit it in our workouts, but it might be just a separate zone 1 workout too for the day, which you could call. If you want to call your walk with your dog or to go get your mail down the long stretch of driveway if you live on a farm or whatever, that can be your zone 1 day. Your zone 1 period for the day. Let's move on over to zone 2. So zone 1, ultra easy, picking up the pace of zone 2, kind of that I would say maybe the most normal pace that conversational pace that we all kind of do our easy runs at or our recovery. So talk a little bit about zone. Hey, how about EJ, you start here. What do you think of when you think of zone 2?
Yeah. So zone 2, I do think of this as like our easy runs. These are really the aerobic sessions. A lot of times these are supporting sessions. Depending on what an athlete is training for, some of their long runs might be only zone 2. Sometimes they do get into a couple other intervals, which we'll touch on as we go up the pace scale. But yeah, I think of these as really just the aerobic supporting sessions. And as I mentioned earlier, I mean, there's a lot of great things that happen with zone 2. I think, the coaches and us, we say, oh, this is like where the magic happens. And this is an exciting thing for athletes to just watch their aerobic efficiency increase.
Yeah.
And I think one of my favorite things is, having an athlete that starts off and isn't maybe accustomed to zone 2 training. And they're looking at like, okay, you need to stay within this heart rate range. And they're like, oh, but it's like 13-minute miles. And sometimes I have to slow down and I have to walk. And like, is this really doing anything? And then 6 months later, they're like, man, that same heart rate range, like I'm running 10-minute miles, or now I'm down to like 9:45 pace. And just watching how their pace can progress within that same heart rate zone and just how much more efficient they've become as a runner, like there we go. That's the magic right there. And so there's a lot of great adaptations that are happening in the body in zone 2, and it's supporting the hard work that's done in those upper zones as well.
So you said a big word. You said the aerobic zone, kind of. So tell us what aerobic means, and when you as coaches, not only as athletes, think of being in the aerobic zone, what does that mean?
Yeah, great question. And I think this is one that a number of athletes ask. So I'm glad that you're bringing this up too for us to discuss. So we've got aerobic and then we've got anaerobic. And kind of just the probably easiest explanation for this is like, okay, where are we kind of getting this energy from, and what energy system are we tapping into? And so the aerobic system, okay, we're really thinking about like the oxygen utilization. And I mean, respiratory therapist Ryan can probably explain this even better than me. But then, when we get into the anaerobic stuff, this is where we're more breathless. And it's like, we're going to the zones where you are not having a conversation, you are not speaking, you're gasping for air a little bit, and so it's just a different energy system in the body, and then we're able to kind of make different adaptations based on those systems.
Yeah, Ryan, piggyback on that. What would you add to that?
Yeah, I think EJ's really hit it really well, right on the head there. I mean, you look at that zone 2, their aerobic pace, yes, for that fat burning ability. To metabolically, we're looking at that from that perspective of your body gets to use a lot of oxygen to break down that fat for energy. And those little powerhouse molecules of ATP get produced. Your
What's
mitochondrial
ATP?
density,
Anaerobic threshold pace?
No,
No.
adenosine triphosphate. Yes.
I knew it wasn't anaerobic because we're anaerobic.
No.
But that was all I could think of. But I should have thought of
Thank you
aerobic
for clarifying.
threshold pace. I don't know. I was just throwing out words that I knew.
But you increasing the mitochondrial density, which in turn it helps burn that fat and burns for energy and produces a ton of energy in that zone 2. I always tell athletes, you know what, this is your foundation. This is your foundation. In other words, if you bought a really expensive vase or vase, whatever, however you say it, but if you bought one. Would you put it on a little pedestal in the middle of the room, or would you try to put it on a really nice big foundation base in case it falls over? You're going to have time to catch it and you put it right back up. But it's like, so I want you to be my very expensive vase and I need you to build that foundation. And so that's what I do. And that's how I tell athletes, like, this is so, so important. EJ said it earlier. You may be walking before running. It's okay. You may be crawling a little bit too. Yeah. Who knows? But keep that heart rate in zone 2. Be intentional. Be deliberate. Be productive, because that's what it is. It's very productive. And not to cheat it. Don't say, oh, I need to push up in a little bit. I'm feeling good today. No. Be intentional and stay right there.
And I mean, we've talked about it. It is kind of that pace that you really can have a conversation. You could talk a lot about what happened on the weekend, or tell a story, talk about your recipes. Like, it is a pace where you could get a lot of information out. And the next zone, maybe it's more short answer kind of type pace. So let's talk a little bit of how long you stay in zone 2. And that's kind of a loaded question as well. But if you can sort of break that down, EJ, or also like why you go to zone 2, maybe on the recovery between intervals, those kind of things.
Yeah, great question again. So the amount of zone 2 in a training plan is really going to vary athlete to athlete. And some of that is going to be based off of just the number of hours that they have available to train. And I think that this is one of the things that, maybe is a surprise to some RunDot athletes when they open up their training plan and they're like, wow, like, some of these sessions look like they've got intensity in all of them, and like, this looks really hard. But if they've set their preferences so that they have, 5 hours a week available to train, we're really going to maximize those 5 hours that are available. And so you're not going to see as much zone 2 running as somebody that's a professional runner and running 25 hours during the week. I mean, that professional runner running 25 hours during the week, they're going to have a larger majority of their time at zone 2, just because of the distribution of intensity and the distribution of hours across their week and their training plan. And so I mean, the importance of zone 2 is really paramount. And as Ryan said, it is foundational, but we don't want to discount, what happens in those upper zones too, especially for an athlete that doesn't have much time available to train and is looking to progress their pace. So that's one of the things I wanted to start off with, because I think that, we often harp on like, yeah, zone 2, like, this is awesome, this is great. And then athletes are like, but wait, like, I thought I'd have like 3 or 4 runs at zone 2. And some may not, just depending on how many hours they have available to train and kind of what their preferences are for that. Now, in terms of like where on their plan they'll see that, or why we want to, be in zone 2 for the recoveries, one of the things that is fantastic about RunDot is just the way that the intervals and the rest periods are distributed. Because as we go back to the very beginning, like, this is purposeful. It's designed with intent, and the way that the workouts are structured do have a very specific purpose, not only in terms of like pushing that threshold pace up, but also making sure that we have like good recovery in between, and we're forcing the body to like actively recover in between intervals too. And so if it says, to jog at zone 2 in between intervals, or if it says to walk in between intervals, or if it gives you 30 seconds or a minute, that's not just, arbitrarily thrown in there. It's not like, like, run a little bit, rest a little bit, you'll be fine. It's like, no, this was specifically calculated for you to be at these specific zones for a specific training adaptation. And so, if Is a zone 2 run? Stay in zone 2 because you're not getting the benefit of it if you're trying to push the envelope and you're flirting with zone 3. If it says to be in zone 2 for your recovery, we want to be in zone 2. It might feel hard. You might really want to walk or be at zone 1, but you're not going to get that same adaptation if you do that versus zone 2. So, very, very purposeful. Lots of great things happening.
Well, I like that you said that because I think a lot of athletes too, and if they're in that middle age group where, you are working full time, maybe you have children, maybe you don't, but you're putting hours in. When we're younger and in college, sometimes you do have time to do other things, train different ways. But once life kind of gets real busy, it's tough to just get in extra mileage here or there. So I think that's what's really kind of cool about RunDot and TriDot is that it is sort of, it asks you how much you want to train, but also it makes everything purposeful. Every day, it isn't just like, oh, just go and run. There are recovery runs, but it's not just like go out and just get in junk miles. There's a purpose for it. And I think that's what's so important for us to be reminded of. I think I sort of before RunDot came into my life, and I haven't even fully committed to actually getting myself to put goals on the list of things to do. But I sort of run that way. I only run 20, 25. Maybe I'll hit a 30-mile week if I do a long run. But a lot of my stuff is probably easiest is zone 2, but a lot of it is up in the higher end of zone 3 because I don't run very much. And a lot of people say, oh, you don't get hurt. Well, I don't run very much, and I don't run super hard either. So I'm not seeing performance benefits at all. I'm just maintaining. And so I do think it's interesting that we can get work done and we can be purposeful running, like you said, 5 hours, even 2.5 hours, which is probably what I run a week. So that's what's cool about RunDot. Are we done with zone 2? Or do you have any more, Ryan, that you want to touch on? Because we can go to zone 3, which I think a lot of fun happens in zone 3.
I think EJ hit a lot on the head right there. And I'll just kind of basically reiterate. I say RunDot is not static.
Yeah.
It is a very dynamic program. And that's what, EJ's already said that, your workouts are very deliberate for your goals in mind. When you have races put in your calendar and then on top of that, which this is one of the coolest things, it's measuring the loads and the stresses.
Yeah.
The residual stresses. What other system in there does it? None. RunDot will measure that residual stress. And so from those stresses of zones 1 through 6. And so, again, it's going to put that zone 2 in there appropriately based on what you're doing or what you're not even doing, for example. So I think I just wanted to mention that really good particular piece because, again, we talk about the foundation. It's so important and doing the right training right.
Let's go to zone 3, and Ryan, we'll stick with you. What the heck's happening in zone 3?
Well, your body is changing internally, and you usually can feel it. But this actually is one of my favorite zones. From the space of it's kind of telling me, hey, Ryan, you must be training for a particular race. And many times it's usually training for like a half marathon or a marathon or even an ultra at that point. And either way, again, this zone is very, very particular towards that. Zone 3 is particular towards those kinds of training. There's a lot going on here. Names for this, which I have to say is the tempo zone or the sweet spot. And some may have heard gray zone, which it is kind of got a negative connotation to it. And I'll explain that too. But metabolically, your body is transitioning. It is transitioning from major fat burning zone number 2. You're pushing it into zone number 3. Now your body's going, hey, listen, carbohydrates, need them. Yeah. It's time. We're going to start burning those too. And so your body has now got a little bit of a sweet spot combo of burning a little fat, burning some carbs at the same time. So you got to be fueling yourself a little bit here. And I think everybody's probably experienced this, that little burning feeling that starts to happen. Well, that is your body transitioning a little bit. It's starting to change. You're producing a little bit more CO2 as well. And so it is a good zone to train in when you have very specific races or goals, and again, it's something that we'll dive, I imagine, dive a lot deeper into it here in just a moment. But, again, is your body does need that time to adapt into that zone 3, start to feel it mentally as well, and going, hey, what's happening here? It feels weird, feels different. It's comfortable, but you're starting to feel that little bit uncomfortable feeling, and you get into that sweet spot and you can hang out there for a little bit. So it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. Don't get me wrong. It's definitely
like
fun.
a little bit of a toothache. You're like, is it there or no? Oh, there I feel it when I drink something cold. Like that's what zone 3, because we know we wake up in zone 4 and we know next week we're going to talk about zone 4, 5, and 6. We know something's really going on in zone 4, 5, and 6. But yeah, I think Elizabeth, tell us some of the workouts that are prescribed in zone 3.
Yeah, so I think one of the most common that RunDot athletes see are like the marathon repeats. And so you have a nice warm up and then you are doing specific intervals at your zone 3 pace. And as Ryan mentioned, a lot of times this is prescribed for an athlete as they're training for a particular event because most of the time athletes end up racing kind of in this zone 3 area. Now, I mean, it depends on the athlete, it depends on the distance of the race. But I would say a lot of times, like a half marathon or a full marathon, this is where athletes are going to be on race day. And so it does take that time to get used to what that feels like, not only from like the mental and physical perspective, but also like what do I need in terms of fueling here to keep myself going at this sustained effort. So we've got marathon repeats. We've got some progressive runs where you do spend a while in zone 3. I mean, you are going zone 2 to zone 3 to zone 4, but you do have a prolonged period in zone 3 that's prescribed as well. And then, I mean, we have things like our race rehearsal days and tempo runs. And so when you are gearing up for that race, like we do want to practice what that feels like. So you might have, a 30-minute tempo and it's all zone 3. So those are a couple examples of where we would see that and athletes would encounter it on the training plan.
So when you talk about tempo though, like when I was training without, RunDot and coaches from RunDot, my coach would say tempo pace is no slower than half marathon pace, but maybe a little quicker than half marathon pace. But now given I was strictly a 1,500 meter 5K gal, I wasn't coming down from the marathon and I really wasn't training this hard for my marathons that I ran. I was just kind of having fun doing whatever. So would you say that when you guys prescribe tempo runs, there's a certain pace, or is there no pace at all with this zone? Like, is it just strictly knowing your heart rates, or do you ever talk about, okay, we know you want to run 4 hours for the marathon, and this should be zone 3, but also 8:30 pace or whatever you're trying to hit to run the marathon in? Like, do you guys ever talk like that?
Yeah, definitely. And I would say very often for zone 3, when I talk with athletes about their training program, most of the time zone 2 is based primarily off of heart rate. And we want to make sure that they are staying really under a heart rate cap more than anything, so that we're not tipping those scales into, I mean, what Ryan was saying, like where we have that transition into the need for more carbohydrates. It's like we really want to keep this at the fat burning. Like we want to make sure that this is an easy effort on the body. And the way that we're going to monitor that best is by what the heart is doing. So zone 2, heart rate. Very strict about that. Now, when we go up to zone 3, zone 4, zone 5, zone 6, which you'll get to, in the next series, zone 3, I'm very specific about the pace for it. Certainly, we still want to look at heart rate. We want to make sure that that's tracking as we would expect it to. But much more often, I'm telling athletes, zone 3, like we're now using pace as the driving metric here.
Ryan, do you ever say, I want you at the low end of zone 3? Or do you not really go that specific?
I will, especially if it happens to be a long, it could be one of the really long runs, for example. I mean, if they're going off and, they're expecting to run a say a 1:30 or under 2 hour half marathon, asking them to start off strategically. This is from a strategic standpoint. It's like, hey, don't fire off in high end zone 3, a little bit of zone 4. No. You got 13 miles in front of you, or, potentially here. So let's start off in our low zone 3 and start to progress it up internal of zone 3 only. And at the same time, I'm glad EJ said this, is that you monitoring your heart rate at the same time, just watching it, because it's your tattletale on your body. It's telling you, hey, what's up? You started off this run dehydrated. Why?
Right.
Do you need to get more fluids today? It's warmer outside. A lot of things can change, and so. I kind of getting a little granular on this question, but just saying, hey, start off in low zone 3, monitor your heart rate, but stay in zone 3, pacing low end, and then work yourself up. Finish stronger from a strategic standpoint. And you're going to race the same way. Yeah. Love for athletes to negative split, which means getting faster on the back end of a run or a race. And it teaches them, you get to practice it. And then on race day, they get to execute it. So there's some benefit. Absolutely.
It's so fun. I do like breaking it down, though. Zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. Like, if you guys had just 1 or 2 words for each zone. Let's start with you, Elizabeth. Like, when you think of zone 1, what do you think of?
Recovery.
Ryan?
Chill.
With Metallica. Okay. Zone 2. EJ, what do you think?
I think I'm going to steal Ryan's word here, but like foundation. I love that he said that. I've got a new favorite word for zone 2, foundation.
Yeah. Well, that's probably Ryan's, huh?
Well, I mean, I can keep that one, or I can add another one that I hadn't mentioned, was, kind of a little bit of bread and butter. I know it's 2 words, but, it is bread and butter.
Yeah.
If you like bread and butter, then it's great for you.
Well, and a lot of people think of base training, but base training can have all kinds of different meanings. I mean, I used to do a lot of zone 4 work in base training, but it was different. It was maybe a little bit longer, and it was fast, but it was longer intervals that got me up to zone 4. So like, you can't really just say base. I like foundation better, because for me, I can at least visualize that a little bit better. How about zone 3? What is that? What's your word, Elizabeth?
For me, I think of race. And maybe that's because, I come primarily from a longer distance approach. I know that, shorter stuff, 5K, we want to, go beyond zone 3. But I think my long distance perspective tends me to skew that toward race as my word.
Nice. Ryan?
I'm gonna break the rule. It's not just one word, but sweet spot. I mean, I feel like when I'm out there, it just feels it feels like a good sweet spot. Like, I can hold on to this for a while, and you're metabolically, I can feel those changes happening. It's just kind of interesting. It just it's probably what helps give you the high at the very end of your day, your long run or long race, right? So yeah.
It doesn't tire you out so much that you are like dragging at the end. It's kind of like, I can hold this for another however long coach would prescribe it. What is the difference, Ryan, between threshold and tempo when it comes to the world of RunDot? Because it's definitely, tempo especially is a word that some coaches are like, I don't like that word at all. It's got too many definitions. It's too broad. I loved it, but I knew what my coaches meant when they said tempo. So what do you think? What's the difference for you? Do you think threshold is met in zone 3, or is that more in zone 4?
I lean towards zone 4.
Okay.
I think threshold is now you're talking about being uncomfortable at that point,
Okay.
and there's very little comfortable in there. There's some, but not much at all. So I think threshold definitely has more of a connotation towards being uncomfortable.
Yeah. You agree, Elizabeth?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, when athletes do an assessment and we really break down, what those zones are for them, we do see their threshold in zone 4.
Yeah.
And we can understand, like, where kind of that tipping point is for threshold. And yeah, I would associate that with zone 4 as well.
Okay. Well, before we get into our cool down question, I got to ask you guys, as athletes, you both are, endurance athletes. We know Ryan's getting ready for a half Ironman. Elizabeth, what are you getting ready for?
I think the same
Oh,
one.
you
I
are.
think we've got a head-to-head competition
Oh
coming up.
boy, did not know this. Oh,
But Elizabeth, are you
Yeah,
getting ready
yeah.
for a marathon too?
No, I'm not. I mean, I'd love to, but I decided to not go Ways of the Marathon this spring, and
Okay,
I
maybe.
put my name on the start list for 70.3 Dallas. So yeah, that was maybe a recent shift, but training's going well. So
Yay!
I'm gonna hold on the marathon a little more and put my name on a couple 70.3 start lists.
Okay, that's awesome. So exciting. I am not going to join you people on that 70.3. Well, to break it up, I am deathly afraid of clipping into bikes. I really am. I am deathly afraid of clipping into cross-country skis or downhill skis. Like, I need my feet. I just need them to be on the ground. So I'm going to just cheer for you people and pray for you both to have a great day. Thank you guys so much for doing this. And we still have this cool down question, which is super fun and I think interesting for all of us. If you watch elite racing, you see it happen in the elite world. And if you're in the masses and seeing that as well. So we had a question from our audience. Frank sent in a question and he said, I've seen more and more fitness influencers and even some professional athletes wearing Breathe Right or breathing strips in workout photos on socials. Is there benefit for runners to use these in some way during training or racing? Or is it a social media fad? What do you guys think? Ryan, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll kick it off. I think, great question, Frank. I kind of question whether those influencers just wear them as like some sort of, stylish, fashionable thing.
Uh-huh.
But the answer is it depends. Yes and no, they are beneficial or not. And I want to break it down first. I want to use the yes part. So yes, it can be beneficial, especially for those athletes who have some sort of nasal obstruction or resistance. So, maybe you have a deviated septum. Maybe you've got some really just, maybe you need to go see an allergist at some point in your life and you get those holes drilled out in your nostrils.
Yeah.
So using the Breathe Right strips may definitely help for sure be able to improve the airflow through your nose. And especially since we're talking about zones 1, 2, and 3 today, that's appropriate, to do. But for those that don't have any restrictions whatsoever, there's the no. No, they're not going to help you any. You might look, I don't know, arguably you think I look really good in that or really funny. But I think when you get to a point where you're just working out super hard, no matter what, at some point you're not even going to be breathing through your nose anyway. So what's the point there? So, but now on the no side, I think some athletes have thought that maybe it improves their VO2 max or something like that. And the answer is no, it doesn't do that. I wish it would, but that's too bad. And it does not raise your oxygen levels. And sorry, the air on our planet is 21%, period. 21% oxygen. It doesn't increase it to 28 or 30. So don't think of it that way. But again, if you do have some sort of obstructive process going on in your nasal passages, yes, it definitely can help.
Okay.
For sure. And they're not, it is functional. So use them as needed. And I think if you feel like, actually, I do want to touch on this. If you feel like a superstar wearing it, then by all means, put it on. Put 2 on. I don't care. Put 1 on your forehead, too, while you're at it. But, use them if it mentally helps you, too.
Yep.
Why not?
For sure. EJ, you have anything?
I mean, I think Ryan covered it right there. The only times that I've had athletes that have used them are one guy had, a broken nose from a whole bunch of years playing basketball. And he said, it just feels like I actually can get airflow through if I use a Breathe Right strip. And for him, there's probably some structural damage there that it was helpful. I had another athlete that was coming off of a cold, and they were just like, I just have some congestion,
Yeah.
and this feels like I can get air through my nose when I'm congested. Now, she wore it just for one race. It wasn't something she consistently did.
Mm.
And so that could also be something that we're seeing. Like, I mean, you might see it pop up here and there on somebody that, is fighting a little bit of congestion. But yeah, as Ryan said, like, really, there's not a lot of benefit if structurally things are good, unless there's a placebo effect that you
Yeah.
feel on top of the world and you're going to crush your race. Then, hey, I'm all for it. Breathe right strips, polka dot socks, whatever is going to make you feel good. Let's go for
Yes.
it.
I just wonder if I'm not saying you guys, I have a huge schnoz. And I wonder if that's why I was a good runner. I had a lot of airflow coming through these nostrils. So, and
I'm
these
gonna have
big
to investigate
glasses,
that
my
on
big reading
myself.
glasses, definitely, they only accentuate it. Like I look like I just need that mustache. That's all I need. Oh, thank you guys so much. This has been fun and also so informative. It's really cool to hear that all zones are important, especially those lower zones. And can't wait to hear what everyone has to say next week about 4, 5, and 6 as well. Good luck in your races. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Carrie.
Keep
Thank
getting
you.
after it.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the RunDot podcast. Help us out by leaving a rating and review on your listening platform of choice. For more opportunities to learn from our coaches, check out our YouTube channel and follow RunDot Training on social. Ready to train with us? Head to rundot.com and get started for free. Until next time, happy training.